Fusion Mobile, quality e-learning experience on the go.
Development of agriculture in Nigeria. Stages of development and its problems. Man as early hunter and gatherer. Man's primary need from the time he evolved was to secure food. In the ancient times, the early man lived by hunting wild animals and gathering fruits, roots, and vegetables. He needed little or no clothing and had no houses because he moved from one place to the other. Man's first crops grew by accident. Soon, the early man found that discarded seeds or parts of wild plants they had eaten grew around the places where they were gathered or thrown. From this period, he learned to ensure his future supply of food by gathering desirable seeds and fruits and planting them. From this, the art of cultivation developed around 12,000 BC, that's before Christ. The first wild animals tamed were the young of wild beasts clubbed down by the early man as he wandered about in the forest. The young of these animals, seeing their mothers fall, would stay with them till hunters came and trapped them and went back to their camps with them. As time went on, the male of such animals mated with the female of their kind and produced young ones. In times of plenty, instead of killing all the animals, the man learned to spare some of the healthier ones which they reared around their homes. In this way, cattle, goats, sheep, horses, dogs, fowls, and other animals became domesticated. This eliminated the day-to-day huntings. All this led to settled life. Initially, plants were sown on existing vegetation, and later, man observed that plants grew better when the ground was broken. This led to the use of implements like hoes and machetes made out of sticks and stones to prepare the ground for growing crops. Later, men trained oxen, horses, and other work animals to pull plows, while hoes and machetes became constructed with metal and wood. The stages of agricultural development in Nigeria and its problems include subsistence or shifting cultivation stage, the rotational bush fallowing stage, the crop rotation stage, and the commercial farming stage. In the subsistence or shifting cultivation stage, after the stage of the early man, agriculture further progressed to a stage of self-sufficiency known as subsistence farming. Subsistence agriculture is the first stage of agriculture. At this stage, farmers produce crops and animals to feed themselves and their families. Rotational bush fallowing stage. This is the next stage following shifting cultivation. In this system, the land is cultivated for some years. When its nutrient is exhausted, it is then allowed to revert to bush for 6 to 12 years to regain its fertility before it is used again. The resting period allows the land to enrich itself again through decayed leaves and plant parts, while the farmer uses another of his land or lands to cultivate before coming back to the former. He could conveniently arrange this movement in rotation, and this gave rise to the name rotational bush fallowing. However, with increase in demand for land for agriculture and other purposes, the fallow period is now reduced to 2 to 4 years. Crop rotation stage. Increasing demand for land due to population explosion has made it impossible for land to be left uncultivated for a long time. Man has also introduced his knowledge of science and technology in soil management, thereby making possible a more intensive use of land without exhausting its fertility. Crop rotation is a planned sequence of growing different crops on a piece of land year after year. It is mostly practiced where land is scarce. Commercial farming stage. Agriculture has become a profit-making venture, business or commercial enterprise undertaken strictly for profit-making in this modern era, as against subsistence farming. Although commercial farming can still be found in rural areas or a modified form of it, Commercial agriculture is a type of agriculture where the farmer produces crops and animals for sale to make profit. Cash crops are produced as well as raw materials for industries. Agriculture has become a profit-making venture, business or commercial enterprise undertaken strictly for profit-making in this modern era. A farmer may farm specifically for cash or profit by specializing in the production of specific crops like the cocoa, oil palm, rubber, groundnuts, and animals like poultry, cattle, etc. This is known as commercial agriculture. The history of agriculture in Nigeria. Talking about the history of agriculture, we have the colonial era, in modern times, and others. The colonial era. During the colonial era, rural agriculture was practiced. Hoes and machetes were the main implements used. With the coming of the Europeans, the peasant farmers were forced to produce cash crops such as groundnuts, cocoa, cotton, palm produce, and rubber, which were needed in their home industries. The British merchants bought these at reasonable high prices. In exchange, they sold goods like radio, motor cars, bicycles, etc. to Nigerians. Later, other Europeans joined the British in buying farm products from Nigeria. These foreigners also brought some exotic crops which were adapted to the Nigerian environment. All these led to the spread of rural plantation farms and individual commercial farms, since farmers realized that the production and sale of these cash crops then yielded money to buy the exotic goods like radio, cars, televisions, etc., and to enjoy higher standards of living. In this era, the government took steps to develop agriculture in the following ways. 1. In 1893, a botanical research station was set up in Lagos by Sir Cloud MacDonald. In 1899, land was marked out as Mole Plantation Ibadan to carry out experimental work. In 1912, departments of agriculture were established in the southern and northern Nigeria. Later, it was regionalized with a director and inspector general for each region. Since then, research, extension, and mechanization has continued to expand till date. In modern times, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Natural Resources was established in the mid-1960s to control agricultural production. During the oil boom period, emphasis shifted from agriculture. Young school leavers left rural areas and migrated to towns in search of office and factory jobs. There was insufficient agricultural production to meet up with the teeming population. Nigeria started massive importation of food instead of exporting. With the oil glut and decline in oil income, the government declared austerity measures and took steps which re-emphasized agriculture. In 1970, Lieutenant General Olusegun Obasanjo, the then head of state, launched Operation Feed the Nation (OFN) as a means of increasing food production. In 1980, President Shehu Shagari, in the same vein, launched the Green Revolution program. In 1984, General Muhammadu Buhari introduced the Back to Land program. We had National Accelerated Food Production Program, that's the NAFPP. There's also Agricultural Development Program, the ADP, and also National Agricultural Land Development Authority, the NALDA. Other developments include the mechanization of agriculture through the use of machines, tractors, etc., the establishment of plantations to raise commercial export crops, establishment of farm settlement schemes to resettle youths and school leavers in agriculture, the establishment of river basin development authorities and rural development program. There's also the establishment of marketing boards and commodity boards, the establishment of agricultural research institutes, agricultural subsidies and loan schemes for farmers, and also agricultural education and extension programs. All these achieved abundant success. Problems of agricultural development in Nigeria. They include the land tenure, lack of basic amenities, poverty or lack of finance, transportation, inadequate storage facilities and processing facilities, inadequate agricultural education and extension, poor tools and machinery, lack of farm input, poor attitudes towards agriculture, and the tendency to regard it as a job for dropouts and never-do-wells. We also have the problem of pests and diseases that attack crops and animals. In the land tenure system, we have two main systems of land ownership in Nigeria. They are the communal land tenure and the individual land tenure. In communal land tenure, the land is owned by the community, village, family, or clan, while individual land tenure is a system of land ownership whereby the land is owned by the individual. Lack of basic amenities like water, electricity, healthcare delivery, good roads, and schools has resulted in youths and able-bodied men and women migrating from villages to towns and cities for better opportunities. The solution is that these amenities should be provided in villages to discourage this rural-urban drift. The problem of the land tenure system can be solved if small units of fragmented land are pulled together and used as a joint unit by the farmers concerned. The government's Land Use Decree of 1978 has also tried to solve the problem by vesting all land in the hand of the government. There is poverty or lack of finance in acquiring or purchasing more land, agricultural inputs, higher labor and machinery. To solve this, the government should provide loans and subsidies to enable the farmers acquire these inputs and increase production. There's also the problem of inadequate transportation and communication network to facilitate timely disposal and marketing of agricultural produce. The solution is that government should construct good trunk A and B roads and provide improved communication through the mass media. Due to inadequate storage facilities and processing facilities, agricultural products most often spoil during the period of abundance. The solution is that there should be cold storage available where feasible, and insecticides and other agricultural chemicals should be used to control post-harvest pests. There is inadequate agricultural education and extension, as most of our farmers are illiterate. This makes new techniques and methods and agricultural practices not easy for them to understand and adopt. The solution is that Ministry of Agriculture should establish demonstration plots. Agricultural extension workers should be more devoted in the education of these farmers. In the problem of poor tools and machineries, our farmers still use obsolete tools for our agriculture instead of using modern tools and machines like tractor-mounted plows, ridgers, cultivators, sprayers, harvesters, etc. The solution is that tractor hire service has been introduced by several states and local governments in Nigeria to ease the tediousness of work. And the lack of farm inputs like feeds, fertilizers, improved seeds, chemicals, and farm implements, the solution is that government should supply and provide money for farmers to procure these things. Pests and diseases that attack crops and animals cause a reduction in vigor and yield. The solution is that proper quarantine of new stock should be ensured and the use of resistant varieties should be adopted. The government should also provide agricultural chemicals for the control of pests and diseases at subsidized rate. Poor attitude towards agriculture and tendency to regard it as a job for dropouts and never-do-wells. The solution is that mechanization will help to lift up the status of agriculture.